Hi everyone. So in today's video we'll see how we can create a calculated column that will store the calculations or logics uh, based on the values we have inside other columns. So let's say you want to create some kind of logic. Let's say you want to find out the difference between days or difference between two dates, or you want to concatenate different values inside columns, right? Or you want to perform any kind of other calculation. So you can do that using the SQL queries that we have. So let's first of all go to our all databases. Now I have a database called pharmacy. So I have opened this table here, database here. If I scroll down, you can see I have a table called medicines. It contains two date columns, manufacture date and expiry date. Now what I want to do is I want to have a calculated column created that should find out the difference between these two dates and then return the number of days between them, right? So that will give me the expiry or the number of days left for the expiry of this particular medicine, right? So how we can do that is we have to use the SQL queries here. So we can use the SQL queries and we can write down the SQL query to create a calculated column. So we can simply go to ChatGPT and just find out the query for that, and we can simply copy paste there. So I have this. You can simply prompt this here. So we want to add a column to our. We want to add a calculated column. So this is mandatory to write. We want to add a calculated column to our existing table in MySQL that will calculate the difference between two dates and return it as the number of days. Okay, so we want our output to be like this. So let's run this and we'll be getting a SQL query here that we can simply use there. So this is the query that we got, right? So this is the query to create a calculated column. I'll copy this here. I'll simply go here and just use the SQL query. I'll paste that. Let's replace this with our table, right? So let me scroll down. So our table name is medicines. So I will use this as medicines. Then we want to find the difference between two dates. So date 2 should be should be the expiry date. Make sure the spelling and everything is correct. Manufacture date here. Right. Now we want to add our secret key to perform this calculation. So give me a second and I'll just copy and paste my secret key here. So here is my secret key. I'll run this query. So you can see it has ran successfully. Now let's close this out. I have my API documentation here. So now we can just try that out to see if we are getting some data or not. So let's say I'll first create the data. Okay, so you can see we have this column automatically added here, date difference. This will be a calculated column. So we'll not be entering any value here. It will be auto calculated based on the dates. So let's try this out and let me first of all enter my secret key. I'll authorize this. Now painkillers, I want to give this as, let's say, any medicine. Let's say my med. The manufacture date I can call it as, let's say, let's keep it as it is, and the expiry date, let's say it should be 2027. Okay, and give it as 17th March 2027. Now we'll just execute this. Okay, and we have to first, let's remove this because we do not want to enter any value for that calculated column. I'll simply execute this So the record has been created. Now let's find out the value here. Okay, let's see if we got our data auto calculated or not. So I'll simply run this get query to read the medicines. So as you can see, we entered these values and our calculated column has provided us the auto calculation here as 740 days, right? So if you calculate this, it will give you the exact value here, right? So this is the correct data. So this is how you can actually create a calculated column that can be based on any kind of complex calculations that you want. So this was a very easy calculation that we made. We simply find out the difference between two dates and return as the number of days, right? So these are the expiry number of days left for the expiry. Okay, you can do any kind of other calculations. You can do arithmetic calculations, you can do any kind of string manipulations, right? So but the only thing here is we have to use the SQL queries feature, right? So and you can simply get that query from a chat GPT or any kind of GPT tool that you are using, and you can simply get that from that particular GPT tool and copy that query and use within NoCodeBackend. So I'm using here ChatGPT, but make sure you try to use the prompt just like this, how we have or how I have used here, so that the ChatGPT knows exactly like we are using MySQL and we want to create a calculated column. So these two keywords are very necessary and very mandatory to use, calculated column and MySQL, so that we are letting the ChatGPT know like what we want to find out or what we want to create. Now let's add another calculated column to perform some kind of arithmetic calculations. So let me say, first of all, copy from here. Okay, copy till here. I'll paste this. So you want to add a calculated column. Let me give this a name as well. With name total. Let's say I want to call this as let's say I want to call this as probability that will let's say that will calculate the, let's say, what we have inside our tables here. So let's use this particular table, doctors. So let's say we want to calculate a multiplication of price. Okay, so I'll say price, where is ChatGPT here? Okay, so we want to add a calculated column with name probability to our existing table in MySQL that will calculate the multiplication of price. Let's make it more easy. That will multiply price with, let's say, 100, price with, let's say, or let's say divide price with 100, and then multiply the output with 50. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this more complex. Okay, my only motto here is to make our query as complex as possible to see the real power of a calculated column, right? So I do not want to make it more easy, just want to give you like we can do much more complex stuff here, but you may have a much simpler use case for your own database. But let me push this to the limits. So I want to create a column, calculated column called probability, that will divide price with 100 and then multiply the output with 50 and then return it as xxx percentage left. Okay, so this will be the kind of output we'll be getting. So I'll just run this and see what SQL query we get. So this is the column, this is a query that we are getting, and this is the syntax, or this is the formula. I'll copy this. Let's go back here, use SQL queries, and I'll just paste this here, and this is fine, right? This is a correct column name, price. I'll run this query here. So this is now created. Let me close this. Let's go back to our API documentation. Let me refresh my API documentation here. Okay, so this is our doctor. So you can see we have this column created. Let's try this out. Okay, let me add my secret key here. Authorize. Let's say doctor name is Charles. Price is, let's say, 10. Let me remove this probability. This will be an calculated column that will be calculated dynamically based on the value here. So I'll click on execute. Okay, so this is created. Let me read the values here. Okay, so I'll execute this, and if you see, this is a new record that we just created. So this is how you can create calculated columns. So this is actually doing the calculation. This is dividing the price with 100 and then multiplying the result with 50. So if you calculate that, you will find this exact value. Okay. So this is how you can perform complex calculations, and you can have a calculated column created for you dynamically. Okay. So when you are creating a post request, when you are adding the values, you do not need to add any value for that calculated column. You need to remove that, because that will be calculated on the go with your values. Okay. Hope this was helpful. In case you have any other queries or anything that you want to ask related to calculated columns or anything else, please shoot an email to our support team, and we'll reply to you, or we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.